More than 80% of families in the North Country say it's gotten harder to afford groceries over the past year. That's according to a March poll from No Kid Hungry, a national nonprofit. One way to put healthy food on the table is to grow it yourself. But gardening can have a steep learning curve. Well, a class through Cornell Cooperative Extension teaches people on low incomes the ins and outs of growing. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. ClaxtonHepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, May 23rd. First up, the New York State legislative session is drawing to a close, and there are still items on the docket that could become laws. A new poll finds support for several of those items. They include protecting children from harmful algorithms on social media. Governor Kathy Hochul says she's making the issue a top priority. Karen DeWitt reports from Albany.
Siena College pollster Steve Greenberg says in a divided electorate, there's one issue that seems to unite both Democrats and Republicans in New York, and that is support for a ban on social media platform algorithms that feed harmful and addictive feeds to children.
When you get 63% of voters, including majorities of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, to agree on something, you would think your elected officials would listen to that because that's the electorate. That's what the electorate wants.
Governor Kathy Hochul says getting the social media regulation bills passed into law is a top priority for her in the remaining days of the session. She says data shows that use of social media by children and teens is linked to increased rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide.
And this darkness lives on platforms like Instagram, TikTok. These are ruled by addictive algorithms designed to draw the young people deeper and deeper into that darkness over and over.
One of the bills, known as the SAFE Act for Kids, would restrict companies from using the algorithms without parental consent. Another, the Child Data Protection Act, would prohibit online platforms from collecting and sharing children's personal data. Hochul held a news conference with the sponsors of the bills in the Senate and the Assembly. She says she and the legislature are still crafting bill language that could withstand any potential legal challenges. There's been intense lobbying against the measures from big tech companies. The governor could not say, though, whether the votes are there yet to approve the measures.
The momentum is building for this. And we're in the final days just railing support. That's what today is about.
The Siena poll also asked about New York's Equal Rights Amendment. It would enshrine abortion rights and transgender rights into the state's constitution, among other things. The poll finds 2/3 of New Yorkers favor protecting abortion rights, but they're more divided on transgender rights, with 63% of Democrats supporting it and 58% of Republicans in opposition. Independent voters back both provisions, though by smaller margins. Greenberg says overall support for the amendment, though, is strong when they're asked whether or not they would vote for it.
And most of the people come back. So 59% of voters, a clear majority, say they vote yes, compared to only 26% who say they would vote no.
The ERA was slated to be on the ballot this November, but it's currently on hold after a court challenge. Finally, the poll finds opposition to some of the measures proposed this end of session, including an expansion of the state's bottle bill that would double the deposit to 10 cents and add wine and hard cider containers. Voters are also against any climate change fighting measures that could result in higher prices for energy. The New York Heat Act would eliminate ratepayer subsidies for hooking up new gas lines. Opponents say the changes would end up costing utility customers more, something supporters deny. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt for the New York Public News Network.
In poll after poll, Americans still say inflation is a huge problem in their daily lives. Well, families can't control prices, but they can control what goes on in their own backyards. That's why a gardening class in Potsdam this spring is teaching low-income people how to grow their own food. Lucy Grindon reports.
Here's your stir stick. Okay. Glug, glug, glug.
In an upstairs room at the Potsdam Public Library, students are mixing water and soil in old plastic containers.
Now remember what we said about good tilth and squeezing it with your hand?
Today, they're planting seeds for microgreens. Right now, they're learning how to feel for the right soil consistency. One student, Michael Edgar, notices his soil is too wet.
Well, I just moved the soil away like that and it pulled up. You don't want it, I guess, when you press it together to clump up and stay that way, right?
Right.
When Edgar was a kid, his dad kept a vegetable garden.
When we had spaghetti growing up as a child, the tomatoes that we used for it came from the garden for the most part.
But he never really learned gardening. Now he's retired from the military. He says food's getting more and more expensive, and he wants to grow more of his own.
Just so I can have some fresh vegetables in the fall and through the summer. Instead of having to go to the farmer's market to buy tomatoes, I can, if I'm cooking something, I can just go outside and pick it right away.
That's exactly what this class is all about.
Learning to grow the things that you and your family really like to eat.
That's Erica LaFountain from Cornell Cooperative Extension. She runs the class, and she says the goal is for students to get their own produce on the table.
To really offset your food costs and increase your food security.
The class is called Seed to Supper, and it's designed for home gardeners on a budget. It's open to anyone who qualifies for a public assistance program like SNAP, WIC, or HEAP, or anyone who feels food insecure. At the end of the 6-week course, students will get special kits to lessen their upfront gardening costs. They'll include seedlings, potting mix, and containers to grow plants in. And along the way, LaFountain says students will meet lots of master gardeners who'll be able to give them advice.
So that people can feel like they can not only garden, but they can also troubleshoot on their own.
I do want to get a couple of the tomatoes in.
To see how the students were faring at home, I visited Laureen Murphy in Norwood. She was planting tomatoes in a small soil bed.
Old me might have tried to crowd them in, but now I've really learned they need their space, they need air to circulate, it keeps disease down, you'll actually get a better yield.
Murphy's 60 and isn't able to work right now because of her health. She's a 2-time cancer survivor, and she joined the class because she was worrying about whether she could grow enough healthy food.
Thinking about what I can do to maximize, like my nutrition choices this spring, because everything's so expensive.
She says inflation's made it much harder to afford groceries.
I don't even know if I could put it into words. Like, just the price of food, it really does take my breath away sometimes. Like you get to the register and you're like, say what now?
In the past, Murphy's been sort of a casual gardener.
My method up until now has been sort of like, I joke in class, good luck, little plants. Like I put them in. It's kind of chaos gardening.
But she says the stakes are higher this year.
Gardening, as sort of a lazy hobby, goofing around, is, I can't really afford to do that anymore. I need produce. I need to be a productive gardener now.
So she's doing what the master gardeners have taught her. She's only putting 2 tomato plants in her limited space instead of 6, and she's planting them really deep.
We're actually going to plant it as deep as these first real leaves.
She yanks out stray roots with her fingers as she goes. She sprinkles a bit of fertilizer in the hole.
Oh, that smells good.
And she places a tomato plant about 8 inches below the surface.
I would not have as confidently planted it as deep prior to talking to the master gardeners. I think really having access to them and their confidence has been a real boon.
Murphy hopes that the Cornell Cooperative Extension class will help her grow about half the produce she needs, even though her garden is small.
It's proof that a little garden is better than no garden.
What matters, she says, is that you have to start with something. Lucy Grindon, North Country Public Radio.
The summer's gardening class is already full, but it'll be coming to a new North Country community every year. And in the meantime, anyone who needs help with their garden can call or email Cornell's Grow Line to get advice from a master gardener. And we have the information on the Grow Line on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Eddie Lawrence of Moira and Dan Duggan of Lake Clear. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.